Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of D&D Quick Shots. Once again, my name is Brandon, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I decided to take a look into the new UA that came out regarding feats. Now, obviously, feats are very individualized to each DM, whether or not they allow them in the first place, and whether or not the Unearthed Arcana, as it is playtest material, even gets used. So I figured I'd take a look. I haven't really reviewed these yet, so the idea was, okay, if I was a DM and I allowed feats, are these things that I could see being useful, and how would I expect a player to utilize these things? So I figured we'd go ahead and jump into this. This is the most recent one that came out. I think it came out probably, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that. So let's go ahead and jump in here. So first one up, Artificer Initiate. This one is interesting, just by looking at the basic concept of it, right? You get a cantrip of your own choice, and then you get a first level spell from that list as well, from the Artificer, spell list there. But you can cast it without a spell slot, which is actually really, really handy. The question really becomes, though, is it really worth an entire feat? So you're basically, the question is, you're going to give up the ability score improvement or whatever it may be, your fourth level, to actually take this. In my opinion, I probably wouldn't. It's not a bad option. It's just not one of those ones I see like being absolutely necessary. So that one, I give it probably 5 out of 10. Not terrible, but not amazing. Chef is always an interesting setup here by looking at the concept. Constitution or wisdom, by 1. Not really great, not bad. You can do that with a lot of things. Cooks utensils, meh. These two pieces are really what it looks like makes the biggest part. So first one up, obviously you can get the extra piece of food. At the end of the short rest, anybody who eats it gets an extra 1d8 hit points. Not terrible at the low end. If I was going to be using it for a backstory piece, like I was a human variant and I wanted to be a chef or something, really honestly solid. Later game, probably not going to see that very much. Same kind of thing here, special treats, and then they can use a bonus action to regain temporary hit points. Probably not as good as a healing spell still. So once again, it's going to be really based on, early level stuff. So not bad, not great. Thematically, if I was going to be using it, probably would be fine. But I probably wouldn't expect very many people to use that one either. Crusher, strength or dex by 1. I'll take it. Hit a creature with an attack deals bludgeoning damage. You can move it 5 feet to an unoccupied space, provided it's no more than one size larger than you. That's not terrible, right? So, in my opinion, is that fantastic? Not necessarily, but there's gonna be uses for it, right? So depending on where your combat is it something you need to knock back and get a little bit of extra space for X, Y, and Z reason? Probably not a terrible point. When you score a crit that deals bludgeoning damage, attack rolls against that are made with advantage until the end of your next turn. That is pretty fantastic, right? So if you're going to be, great weapon master, stuff like that, Crusher absolutely plays into that one, right? So if you hit a crit, everybody gets advantage on that creature. So if you're going against a big, bad, evil guy, that's pretty legit. That one easily can see use of. I would actually say that's probably so far. I'd give that one an 8 or 9 out of 10. That's fantastic. This piece right here is just amazing. Eldridge, spellcasting or pact magic. Okay, so saying forward, when you gain level, you can actually replace an invocation. Okay. Probably not going to get a huge amount of use. But I mean, if you don't like how your player is or your character is running, I could easily see somebody taking that one. That's not a bad idea. Let's go see what's next. Fey Touch. Increase your intelligence, wisdom, max 20. Misty Step and a first level spell of your choice. Not terrible. No spell slot. Okay, once again, they're liking to give you the extra spells without slots. That's not bad. You can cast these spells using spell slots you have at the appropriate level. Ability increased by this feat. Again, not bad, not great. Is it worth an entire feat to get basically a free spell slot? In my opinion, not really. I wouldn't do it. Not bad. I don't think I would use it. In my opinion, maybe there's a couple people who would, but I don't see very many people using it as a whole. Let's see. Martial training, develop a spell. Okay, so as long as you have proficiency with that, you can actually pull a fighting style. That's actually not bad, depending on what you're wanting to do with it. I could actually see that being a really interesting thing for somebody who's wanting to play around with maybe, let's say you're a paladin or something, and you're wanting to play around with having the fighting styles. That's not a terrible setup. If you wanted to go shield master instead, actually have the fighting style with that, or maybe the dual wielding setups. There's a couple things you could do there. Could make an interesting build. Probably not OP by any means. I wouldn't see that being used with a min maxer very much. But again, that would be a very backstory based one. I think would be a really good concept. So I like that one. I think you'll see a little bit of play for it just for thematic pin, but I don't see it being like a long term kind of thing. So cheers, by the way, Voodoo Ranger, Juicy Haze IPA. If you don't like, sorry guys. Okay, let's see what's next here. By the way, if you disagree with anything I've said so far, definitely leave it down in the comments. Tell me what your thoughts are, because in my opinion is only my opinion. So love to see what anybody else believes here. All right, so let's go with Gunner. Let's see. Increased dex, not terrible. You gain proficiency in firearms, specifically firearms. Now that's interesting, right? So if you're playing high fantasy and stuff and you want to pull Gunner out the boot, really, really interesting there. Ignore loading. That's kind of huge, actually. And no disadvantage on ranged attack rolls. Whoo, boy. If you're looking to go gunslinger, that's beast. Like, that is really good if your DM is actually allowing actual guns in play here. Because not having to reload, that's fantastic, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be like this super just always shooting crazy guy. But that's a pretty good little feat there, especially not having disadvantage in ranged attack rolls from 5 feet. So that's pretty slick. I mean, if you're going to be building a gunslinger some way or other, I don't see you having a better feat there. Sharpshooter would be the biggest one that people would compare to. I think this one would be better, because sharpshooter's not bad. You're doing the range and you get to double it and everything else, but that's way better for the close combat. So what else we got here? We've got Metamagic Adept. Metamagic, hands down, one of my favorite pieces of a sorcerer. So one of my favorite spellcasting classes is Sorcerer because of Metamagic. So being able to do twin spells or like being able to protect your people when you're casting something that has AoE and give them the auto saves and all kinds of stuff, careful spells. It has such wide use of it. Let's see what the second half here is. Sorcery points based on Metamagic. That only having 2 sorcery points on it almost makes it not worth it. So a sorcerer gains basically a point per level. So at 20th level, they'll have 20 points, right? So a lot of things cast 1 or 2 sorcery points, and they can actually, revert those back into spell slots. And there's a lot of really cool stuff they can do. Now, being able to actually replace the options isn't bad. I would say, depending on the build of the class, this could be really good. I could see this being something that a wizard would do great with. I could also see being really, really good for a warlock, both of those. Because warlock being able to, twin spell and take a single target spell and retag it, well, that's Eldridge Blast. I mean, per cantrip, basically, you're getting able to double it, which is pretty slick. But basically, you can do it once, maybe twice. Like, I don't know. That kind of makes it. If they would have given the let's say 4 sorcery points, I think that would have been phenomenal, right? That would have made that thing completely ridiculous. But with a 1, I don't know. I give it maybe, I'll rate that one probably a 7. Definitely has a lot of ability. Probably don't think it'd be amazing. Piercer. Okay, so we're actually playing with piercing a pretty good amount. Let's go. I wonder if this is kind of like the bludgeoning one a second ago. Hit a creature with attack, deals piercing. You can re-roll a damage die. Okay, so if you get a 1 on one of the damage, you can re-roll it. Not a bad crit. You can roll a 1 additional damage die when determining the damage it takes. Yeah, that's not terrible. The problem is with piercing, there's not a huge amount of piercing as a whole. I mean, there is, obviously you got arrows and you got cool things like that would be good for, somebody playing ranges. But most of the up close and personal stuff, you're not going to see a whole lot of that. I see, the bludgeoning one is going to be significantly better than Piercer. This kind of feels like they made it just because they made the bludgeoning one. So I think this could have had a whole lot of better option there, but not terrible. Let's go see what else we got. Poisoner. I was talking about when I was building out the campaign, which we're only, 2 or 3 sessions into at this point. I had a guy that wanted to play Poison, so we'll see if he ends up picking this up. I've already okayed it. So when you make a damage roll, you ignore resistance appointment, so that's cool. You coat a weapon as a bonus action instead of an action. That's huge. So you can actually coat and swing same turn. That's fantastic. You gain proficiency in poisoner kits within 1 hour, blah, blah, blah. Once applied until poison potency for 1 minute until you hit. Or take 2d8 and become poisoned until the end of the next turn. So now any weapon actually can become a poison weapon. So, there's not a lot of weapons that actually create the poison condition. I think that's actually a very necessary step. I do like that it actually increases still the damage. It's very much like having, basically the poison dagger being able to increase the amount of damage done and actually, poisoning somebody. Now, the difference between the dagger, it does it for a minute, whereas this obviously does it for much less. So, interesting there. Let's go see what else we got. Increase ability score by 1 of your choice. So it's kind of an open concept. Proficiency of 1 skill or tool of your choice. Choose 1 tool. So practice expert. This is kind of a catch-all, it seems like. So it's basically, pick a skill, increase it by 1, pick a proficiency. Cool, here you go, you can have it. Choose one of your skills or proficiency, and you get double the ability checks. It's kind of a catch-all. It can be used, I assume, to a pretty good point, but is anybody really going to use that to, major effect? Now, the question I think I would have is that can you double it? So, like, if you are, already doubling it with a certain thing, and then you redouble it for this one because now it's a feat. Let's say you have a 4 proficiency, and then now you're going to go ahead and double that, and then you're going to double it again and get like a plus 16. Is that opening a really wide door? Good question. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one there. That one I just see being exploited pretty hard, if just because of this last piece. I would be weary on that one for somebody who's like, hey, can I use this? Like, for what? All right, let's see. Shadow Touched. You learn to bend shadows from experiencing the Shadowfell. You gain the following benefits: intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. Okay, I like being able to increase charisma. You don't see that as much as I think we should. Learn Darkness. First level spell. Must be from illusion or necromancy. Without a spell slot, once again. Cast these spells in a way you can't cast them. Alright. Using a spell slot, you have appropriate level. So this one's very much on the same page as the other ones, just switching up the stat and then once again giving a free spell and then a free slot. Not a terrible thing. Darkness is actually one of my favorite go-to spells because unless they have some way, True Sight or something to see through it, you can just wreak havoc with that spell. So there's a lot of things you can cast it on. Specifically, if you can cast it on something that is worn or held or something like that. You can actually cast it on an arrow if you chose. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So it's really an interesting concept. Do I think it's worth a feat? Probably not. Once again, I see this being minimally used. Maybe if you're doing something that gives you a feat early on, maybe, but I don't see it using much past that. Shield training. No requisite. So that's an interesting piece there. I've always talked about being able to use a shield with a lot of characters that don't necessarily have access to a shield is super beneficial. So a wizard use a shield, a small setup or something? Well, no, obviously not. They have no armor classes at all. But here you go. Here's a shield training. Here's some actual training you can do. So that's a pretty interesting setup. Dex con, strength, okay. In combat, you can don it off as a free object, okay. If you have spellcasting, you can shield as a spellcasting focus. Yeah, so this I could actually see being used to unsquishify a little bit your wizards or your sorcerers or things like that. And make a little more sense of why they are out adventuring and things. And, a shield's not really a complicated concept. That's one of the things, having a proficiency with a shield. In my opinion, I think shields are very much an automatic assumption of knowing how to use it okay. Not amazingly, but if somebody's swinging something, at you, your first reaction is to hold something up in the way. So makeshift shields are okay with me. So in this kind of aspect, being able to use it as a focus, you actually have a lot of backstory bases there that you can play with that one. I like it. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's probably better than the Shadow Touch, honestly. So, take it what you can on that one. Let's go see Slasher. This is probably just like the bludgeoning one. Let's go see. We'll cut to the greatest results. Strength Dex. Okay, once per turn, hit a creature with attack deal slashing. You reduce the speed of the target by 10 feet. So you can slow people down by cutting at them. That's interesting. You grievously wounded until the next turn, has disadvantage on all attack rolls. So again, this is better than Piercer. Like, bludgeoning and then the slashing, both I think are solid. Being able to, slash an open cut and give somebody disadvantage, that's pretty slick. Like, that's actually not a bad concept. Being able to slow them down while you're at it, also not terrible. That would be one of those things that if you're going to be hitting against the big bad evil guy and you have a rogue, I could easily see this being a fantastic rogue ability, right? I don't think I would not take this as a rogue, right? Being able to sneak up behind somebody, run something with slashing, be able to hit somebody, slow them down on top of slowing them down. Hopefully I get to crit it, and then if I get to crit on top of it, they get all these disadvantages. Like, that's great for a rogue. I love that. Let's go see what else we got. Tandem Tactician. Your presence can elevate your comrades. You can use help as a bonus action. Okay, instead of a full action, give somebody advantage on a thing. That's cool. When you use help to aid an ally and attacking creature, increase the range of help by 10 feet. Okay. Additionally, you can help 2 allies targeting the same creature within range when you use help action this way. Okay, so I see this very situational, right? So if I have nothing to do, I'm going to use the help action. Is how that works. Like if you don't know what you're doing, use help. That's what happens. Using it as a bonus action actually makes it more effective and more usable. So I like that. So I don't think bonus actions get used as often for a lot of classes. So I could see that being a very useful effect. And being able to aid an ally by an additional, basically it's a total of 15 feet. They got to normally be within 5. So, I mean, within 15 feet of you, and you can actually help 2 people at the same time, giving them the extra advantages. That's pretty fantastic, actually. If you're a super support character, you're more of the healing kind of things. You're druid or something like that, and your bonus actions you don't see using as much. Tandem Tactician really makes that effective. I like it. I think that would be a good team dynamic if you're really pushing into the team concept and everybody has their own roles. You got your range guy, you got your sorcerer guy, you got your druid over here for support, and then you've got whoever else, and you're really trying to make the most sense of it. That's money. That makes sense for me. I'm in. Tracker. Spend time hunting creatures. So this is ranger ability. Wisdom by 1. Hunter's Mark. You can cast it without spending a spell slot. disadvantage or advantage on wisdom survival checks track creature. This is basically somebody who's wanting to be a hunter but not be a hunter. Who would be a hunter and not be a hunter? That's a grand question. I don't know. I don't think I would look at that and say, okay, this would be great for this class. At this point, I mean, maybe fighter would use it, but that wisdom score by one, I don't see uses very much, unless you're. I mean, even in the free hunters mark, I don't know, man. I see this being a very niche concept. Somebody trying to build something out of the ordinary. Not terrible, just probably not going to see a whole lot of use out there. So, anyways, that's my opinion on everything here on the Unearthed Arcana 2020 feats. Definitely, put some comments down below. See what your favorites one are. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you see a better use of something that I didn't actually see. But definitely, if first time here, do me a favor, like, subscribe. Go ahead and hit the notifications. I try to upload once a week. This isn't my primary setup, so as much time as I can put into it, I do. So I very much appreciate everybody out there who has left me fantastic comments and subscribed and everything else. So much appreciated, much love, and really, I hope you guys have a great day.